This is
WAW!
What a week.
What a week. PoliTricks.
Welcome to Wow, What a Week. It's time for that feature that gives you a view on politics. Or as one of our viewers, Nelson Mbokata, put it, might make you sound hella smart at the office. We're hanging out with our Politico, Botsang Modimowame. Bonang. Wow, Botsang.
You press a double shot of Jameson single malt.
Or BNG. Okay, we're not gonna even retake that. Yeah, because Rebona Gawen, Rebona Politiki Gawen.
Yeah, anyway.
So we ask you, Rahobota, and then when our Rebona.
Yeah, anyway.
Botsang is in the building.
Bonang is still BM. But anyway, good morning to you, Fresh, and morning to the viewers.
Happy birthday for this previous week. You and your mother celebrating your birthday.
Yeah, it has been an interesting motherly week. Yes. It was Mother's Day this past week, and my birthday, and 2 days after my birthday, it was my mother's birthday.
Sure.
So I was born 2 days before my mother was born. But thank you very much for the belated birthday wishes. We're still in the month of May. Mm-hmm. The birthday celebration continues.
Absolutely. Now, at the end of last week, in fact, just as we were done with the show, then we find out that Ruben Brigetti, who is the U.S. ambassador to South Africa, has made a statement that we're selling arms to Russia. I mean, it obviously became a big issue because it even affected the rand and how the rand was performing.
Well, Fresh, that was very disturbing. Yeah. And we should remember as a nation that it is not the first time the Americans do this. I actually, we'll talk about it some other time,
sure,
became a media analyst and political analyst due to the Americans for what they did years back to say Al-Qaeda is going to bomb South Africa. And I was invited in as an ex-diplomat to talk about it and open up this platform. Yes. But we'll talk about it. The American ambassador, the first what has happened was, I think South Africa reacted badly in that instance. They treated Ruben with kid's gloves.
Sure.
And it was not the first time. Few months back, he did same allegation about bombings of Sandton City, understand, which was a farce.
In fact, if it was any other African country, he would have his bags would have been packed for him.
Actually, if it was any other country, they should have sent him home immediately. Sure. And the Americans can send our ambassador from Washington back. But that was the very first thing. And you see, they can have allegations, they can have people spying and looking after their nationals all over the world. That's common cause. The problem is when he runs to a press conference and calls a press conference and talks in confidence and even, bets with his own life that it's true what he's saying. Whether it's true or not is something we'll discuss. But it's the manner he conducted himself. There's protocols, there's Jericho, there's a chief of protocol in South Africa. He could have engaged the authorities in South Africa, including the South African state security, to talk to them, and he did not. But then, moving forward, then they call him in corners to engage him, to raise their concern, and he profusely apologized.
But he hasn't apologized publicly.
You see, if I was sitting at Derco, in protocol at the ministry, I would have sent the American ambassador back to the platform he used to insult or attack the Republic of South Africa to apologize there. You can't apologize in corners. But the other thing also, he then lied, and I use the word lie very carefully, saying the ruling party in South Africa, the African National Congress, have been avoiding him, refusing to meet him.
But why does he want to meet a political party when he's a U.S. ambassador? He's not a democratic party of the state.
He's a yes.
So why is he trying to engage the ANC?
Well, look, in diplomatic circles, you can as an ambassador, you can, but it's a side thing.
That's what I'm saying.
You can lament about it. You can engage local, but normally not even as the head of state. At the head of the mission, exactly. your lieutenants and your first secretaries and your councils, they can do that. But what was funny about it? Weeks before, it came out clear that weeks before that media rant by the ambassador, the ANC had met one of the highest ranking officials of the ANC, who is the Secretary General of the ruling party, as well as another cabinet minister from the presidency. They met with this ambassador who was saying the ANC supported him. I think he likes limelight. He wanted to be seen in public with ANC officials and so forth. But that was a diplomatic, hullabaloo. And I think South Africa should have sent the ambassador back. It doesn't matter of trade relations, because look at his conduct has actually affected the currency of the country and the relations between the countries. Coming to say sorry in corners, I think we treated them with kid gloves, especially if it's a repeated conduct or behavior by a high-ranking, international relations official.
Now, EFF CIC Julius Malema says, anyway, what could we provide Russia? What are your views on that?
Oh, well, look, I wouldn't say so. What I know, and I've written an article and I was in other platform talking about it, is that the machines and the war weapons that Russia possesses or use, and that I'm saying, in confidence from military sources, our arms are not compatible to that, unless we want to use Russia wants to use new and different arms. We can provide something, but not what they are using at the moment. They are way ahead of us. Not to say we can't give them zero, but that is not.
We have enough AK-47s.
Well, Africa has more AK-47s than Russia itself these days.
Exactly, so we can send them back home.
You can send them back there. But you see, the other issue that is disturbing is there is no trade embargo between the Republic of South Africa and the Russian Federation. There is no sanctions, there's no trade embargo. The sanctions are the West, the US, and NATO, and those who are in support of that. South Africa is said to be neutral on this. It does not mean we can't trade with Russia. They can stand up and say, you can't sell arms to Russia because Russia is an aggressor, is attacking Ukraine. But we know, me and you, yesterday, 2 days ago, Israel bombed the children of Palestine with whose arms supplied by whom? By the Americans. So it's Israel, not an aggressor in this instance. And this double standard is not going to work. But there is no evidence. This disgraced ambassador did not provide any material evidence on the table. They may have it, but they didn't provide it, which makes it, questionable.
But also, it's not like the South African government are an arms dealer, that they would necessarily know that Botsang Arms didn't have a deal.
Well, I have got a different view. South African government is an arms dealer because we've got Dinel, which is the commercial arm.
What I'm saying, though, is there's other dealers and there's other people who sell arms outside of
private people who are arm dealers, who can be the middle person between Dinel or Armsco and other countries. They may actually be South Africans who purchase arms there to sell abroad. So it may be private individuals. So in this instance, the government may have not sold arms to Russia, but a private arm dealer may have done that. We don't know that. And I think that's why the president has instituted another commission of inquiry.
Does it need a commission of inquiry?
That is very disturbing fresh. It's either then this is going to confirm what the Americans are suggesting. It also means to some of us that the president, the minister of finance, which is the collector of revenue, as well as the minister of defense, which is the political body of Dinel, do not know what is going on in the country. You understand? I don't think we need a commission of inquiry into this whole thing. It's a waste of money. The president should have simply called his Minister of Defense, could have called Dinel, and that special committee that is sitting, which include finance and the presidency and intelligence, that is sitting in the presidency to say, have we sold any arms? You understand? And they learn what they are saying. If they say no, the president would have either been told the truth or misled. But to go and dig and have a commission, what if after this commission spends another 30 million, 40 million, and we find out that no, these arms were actually sold by private individuals to Russia, if indeed any arms were sold, but Russia came up with a statement. They were silent about this whole thing. They looked at all the Mickey Mouse games going up and down between South Africa and the USA, but they came out with an official statement. And I think if this commission is going to sit, it should sit and do this as soon as possible. I'm of the view that, by the way, this is another attempt by the United States to destabilize and disturb the de-dollarization process. This thing is becoming real.
Because the rand took a pounding on that day.
It did, but look, that's common course when very important people like ambassadors, heads of state, prime ministers, or ministers of finance make damaging statements.
Sure.
It will impact and affect the currency of the country.
Sure.
And this may have long-term effects, but I'm looking at a bigger picture. The USA is in trouble. South Africa is sitting on a strategic position, being friend of the East and the West, and a super power in inverted commas in Africa. So if South Africa coughs, it may disturb whatever the East and the West are interested in doing in Africa. So I think the Americans did this to try and say to South Africa, you see, if you are going to associate with our enemies, what would happen? But the issue here, remember a week before that, President Mbeki and many people came out and say, but why are we still pushing the dollar? Why are we not trading in currencies of our own countries that we want to trade with? And America, I think they sat back, and they said, we can't let this narrative run without disturbing it. The purpose is to disturb this narrative that the dollar is, being dumped by a number of states, and South Africa is on a key position with BRICS in order to leave the dollar. That may be the strategy they use, but it is very bad for us.
In fact, can we, with all of what's happening here, where we're straddling both friendships, I almost feel like a guy with a sugar mommy who has a lot of money, but also has a partner here who's very good in bed, and you don't know what to do.
Well, we are in that situation. South Africa is being prostituted actually by the West and the East. Yeah.
Can we afford, for instance, to lose the access we have to the US market through AGOA? Because it's billions of rand a year.
Oh, look, the American ambassador went and boasted with figures that we are talking about 21 billion US dollars. So it will be trillions in rands per annum through the AGOA act or deal. It's fine to say that, but the American ambassador failed to state the benefit that America has, not only through AGOA, for any trade they'll be doing with Africa, because it has a mutual, beneficiation. We can't afford to risk that.
Yeah, it's not like they're sending money here and they're getting nothing.
They're getting nothing. Logically, we can't afford to lose that. But also, we have to open our minds and think for the future.
Sure.
Should we risk that the dollar and America are losing the grip in the world economy and risk our friends with China and Russia? If you look at dealing and trading with China only, forget Russia. If we cut ties, and I don't say that will happen, that's pie in the sky. But if we cut ties completely with the US and deal with China on its own, before we include other East Bloc countries, can manage to triple that 21 billion. So it's a very critical situation that one has to look into. Who do we trade with? We need to keep a balance. We can't say because this one is sitting with AGOA, now they are going to use AGOA
as a trump
as a trump card.
Or to blackmail us.
You understand? Yeah, to blackmail us, to say, by the way, we've got AGOA and you are benefiting from it. South Africa didn't ask America for AGOA. America sat and decided, how are we going to continue imperializing those people, exploiting them and controlling them? They had a plan. We are benefiting from that plan and that process at the moment, but that should not put us in a position where we have a blind eye on what other nations can do for us.
In fact, speaking of other nations, we have African heads of state feeling like they might be the solution for Moscow and Kiev. What are your thoughts on that? And especially given that we have wars on our continent and our heads of state are barely able to get these warlords or these gun-toting generals to stop killing one another and civilians. But we think we can go and convince those two.
People who believe in miracles says maybe it's a good attempt. It could work. Maybe it needs the underrated player in this instance.
Oh, the underdog.
The underdog. Maybe it needs that. But for me, it doesn't make sense at all. We have wars in this continent that these 6 powerful leaders led by President Ramaphosa are failing to stop. Last week, me and you, we spoke about the challenges in Sudan as well in the Kingdom of Eswatini. The African Union is failing to manage Sudan. It erupted as recent as a month ago. Central African Republic, For over 20 years, there's been skirmishes and a battle on the eastern part of the DRC and the Republic of Rwanda. And the African leaders have failed to manage and contain that perpetually. At some stage, we spoke about it. The guns were silenced for a few months, then they're up again. But what is of concern when you look at the proposed document that they're going to present to Kiev, to Zelensky, and to Moscow, to President Putin? The proposal there, it has two fundamental elements. Number one, obviously, is to say we don't need a war, we need peace. We are Africans, we want peace. But then Africans, why do you get involved? You want peace there? Because their reasoning is it's impacting on international trade and diplomatic relations. But the most important one that they are taking forward is to say it's a risk for food security.
No, but there was a passage that the Russians had agreed that ships that carry food can pass.
Exactly. It's one of the things when this war started, and we spoke about it months back. Russia came with proposal to say to our friends who are in Africa and other places, we have created a passage that we're going to use for fuel, gas, as well as food that will be transported safely and so forth. Again, first, let's not even go far. Let's not even look at Russia providing food security for us. Africa is actually, I've seen reports, one of the biggest continents on earth. We've got the biggest population after China. And we are sitting here and we are worried about food security because we import food. We import food to an extent that we even import toothpicks from China and matches from China.
And we have all the trees on the planet.
China comes here to take trees that were made toothpicks that were invented by the Khoi and the San and Botswana, by the way. You understand? Now, we want to talk about importing food, wheat and cooking oil, sunflower oil, palm oil, from where? Ukraine and Russia. When we've got massive agricultural land, African leaders were supposed to be sitting down and saying, why don't we up agriculture in the continent and skill our people and feed ourselves? We've got the climate.
Skill our people, incentivize our people.
Incentivize our people. We've got the climate, we've got the land, we've got, good soil. We have everything that is God-given that we can literally farm everything in this continent. And instead of them investing their time and resources and planning and thinking on that, they are worried about importing wheat and oil from Ukraine and Russia. That's very upset. And that is the disturbing part. But for peace sake and for diplomatic relations, let these 5 gentlemen, again, it's men only, let them go and chop down. All wars in this world have been started by men, and they continue to be fought by men. For a change, I should have taken women to go and talk to these two Zelensky and Putin. Say, let's talk. What can we do? I don't know if it will bear results. I
don't think it will. With all due respect,
I don't think it will. With due respect, President Putin is very smart. I suspect very strongly that he may have facilitated this. He may have come up with a concept because of the relation he has building. If you look at the countries that are going there, the relation he has been building with them, and there are some of them, their intention to join BRICS, and to say, I said I don't want to fight, but let us go back to the 2014 agreement that I, as Russia, had with Zelensky and NATO. Let's start there, because this war doesn't start now. But the Americans and NATO, I don't think they're going to back off on that. There'll be few countries in Europe, for example, the Federal Republic of Germany, they have started, talking along the lines of, soft lines to say, guys, let's go back to the negotiation table. This thing is not going to work, because it is getting worse. I can tell you, the fight has been intensified. We don't see it on the normal media. But what is happening is, yesterday, actually, President Putin signed a decree that TV BRICS must be launched. So BRICS is going to have a BRICS TV network. Okay, President Putin signed a decree. Why President Putin? Because Russia is the next chairperson of BRICS next year. So what they want is, by the time BRICS meet in Russia next year, then the BRICS TV should be there already, which I think is a move in the right direction. But you can see what President Putin is doing. He's actually saying all other media in the world are not reporting the true events of what is happening inside BRICS as well as between Russia and Ukraine. And therefore will create a platform that will belong to BRICS, that the Americans and the West cannot sanction like they did with Russian television. I think it's a move to the right direction, very strategic move, because peddling information and propaganda is the most important weapon for people to know what is going on. At the moment, there are people who hate Russia to say they are aggressors, but they don't know that actually they are not the primary aggressors. They are responding. I don't say if a war it's a correct thing, but Russia is responding to a situation that happened and a threat that happened. But I think it's the media, it's the propaganda, it's what you peddle, whether you are any other news platform, and it depends on the viewership you will have.
Can we just quickly, before we bring it back home, discuss how, for instance, we've been very clear about how we are non-aligned in terms of what's happening between Russia.
Yes, neutral position.
Yeah, that we're neutral, but we're still doing war games with one of the parties. We're sending army generals to Moscow, which is the very party we're accused of supporting, but not saying we support them.
We hosted them for sea practices 2 months back, yes.
Why do we not just come out and say, these are our friends? Because we say one thing, but our actions are saying something else.
Oh, look, that's why I have said before, this trendsetter, neutral position does not work. It may be diplomatic, but it doesn't work. We've been doing it for years. We did it with the US. When there were aggressors in Afghanistan, they used to come here and have practices. But like when we started this conversation, I have said there is no trade and diplomatic embargo between South Africa and Russia. So, and there were plans between these two countries, bilateral agreements and plans. So now that they are being seen as the aggressor does not necessarily mean we should, cut ties and the plans we had with them, because there's bilateral relations which must go ahead. There were plans that were made 3 to 4, 5 years ahead to say this year we will do this, another year we will do this. And by the way, remember, we are not seeing Russia as the aggressor. We are seeing Russia as a friend as well. We know what has happened. South Africa has never accused Russia as the aggressor. So if I don't see you as the aggressor, and people start saying disassociate yourself from that aggressor, I'll say, but which aggressor are you talking about? And I think that's the position we've taken. South Africa is saying war, it's not good. We will not take side, but Russia is not the aggressor. We still engage Kiev. Last week, the ambassador of Ukraine met with the minister of international relations in South Africa. Last week, one of prime minister or senior official of Ukraine engaged with President Ramaphosa. So we talk to both sides, and there's nothing wrong with that. But again, realistically, we should remember that Russia may be more of a friend. The same as the US is more of a friend to us than Mexico. Why wouldn't we treat US and Mexico the same level? And I said, it is not right to say this friend is more important than another friend, but obviously, naturally, there are levels.
Sure. Let's bring it back home. Minister Praveen Gordhan was at Scopa this week. Didn't have the kindest things to say about former CEO at Eskom, De Ruyter. What are your views on Minister Gordhan's submissions?
My views are what transpired there. Fresh, I think South Africans must start accepting reality. And I'm not normally a guy who's afraid to say things as they are. I think Minister Praveen Gordhan, one, he ridiculed and humiliated those MPs. I've never seen those bunch of MPs from Scopa, and the chairperson of Scopa is actually one of my favorite politicians in South Africa. He is very young, very smart, very articulate. He always puts things up front.
And very measured.
Yes. I've never seen him so tamed. Praveen went there and spoke to those MPs like they are kindergarten kids. He will refuse to answer questions. When he's caught up in a direct question, he doesn't answer. The chairperson does not call him to order. He goes and he gives them a lecture, a long lecture about Jan van Riebeck and how people should conduct themselves and things like that, avoiding questions. Then he flips. And I will come to my opinion. He flips and he speaks about how the Reiter was grandstanding, how the Reiter is a disgrace, and he's a man who was supposed to be sitting there doing his job.
Gandhi's busy taking notes for a book.
Gandhi's busy taking notes for a book, and now he's ridiculing them. Again, we know that's what the Reiter did. Yeah. We know that the Reiter failed. We knew he was going to fail. We told the government, Mr. Praveen and Mr. President Ramaphosa, the two of them, with the two previous chairpersons of ESCOM, they stood up in front of the nation. They told us that's the best man for the job. He will succeed. He has dismally failed and performed worse than any other. Now, the very same people that have said this is the best blue-eyed man for the job, he goes and he exposes them. We spoke about it last week. He goes and exposes them. He said, the president knows, the minister knows, and the other minister also knows, and the chairman of the board, they know what I was doing, they know what are my challenges, and they were briefly and they were informed, and there's evidence to that, because Malakapuru Mokhowa, the former chairman, comes and says he's telling the truth. Now, you go and you play the man. I understand. You play the man and you leave your job as a minister. He's pointing fingers to say, I couldn't perform my duties because of the high level of corruption. He even becomes specific and say, from the ruling party, from the ANC, he's specific. And he says that instead of opening this up, investigating, digging this, you play the game he's playing. You start pointing fingers while you are principals. And that's what Praveen Gordhan did. But I don't want to believe that Mr. Gordhan is honest in saying the Reiter is a failure. He was grandstanding, he failed in his job. I don't want to believe that, and I'll tell you why. Number one, I've already mentioned that he defended him. He portrayed him as the best. Number two, the Reiter has said he knew he was involved. As my political principal, I briefed him. He didn't do anything, and I found myself in the corner. Now you want to come and say that person is useless when that person has said, but I told you why I'm failing. And I just think Mr. Praveen Gordhan and all other people are defending the ruling party, are defending, you know, one thing about the ANC members is that they will defend their organization with everything under the sun, wrong or right. Yeah, by Tibagadi, as the Sotho people say. You understand? Wrong or right. And they're doing it. The Secretary General of the ruling party in this past week has stood up in a live media interview and was asked, was President Thabo Mbeki wrong in saying the ANC is treating President Ramaphosa with kid's gloves and defending him? And the Secretary General said, we know that he's sometimes wrong, but we will defend him with everything, even if he's wrong. Now, what do we expect Mr. Gordhan to do? To stand up and say, yes, we are corrupt. Yes, some of our ministers, cabinet members are corrupt. Yes, the country is in darkness and load shedding now because of the corruption caused by thugs and thieves. He's not going to say that. That's why last week when we started our conversation, I said political office bearers are lying and misleading the nation. And it has come out clear that they are lying and misleading the nation, and that's why we are sitting in darkness. And again, I'm saying it, they do not care. And that's where we are. 6 months, a year ago, they were defending the Reiter. 6 days ago, the Reiter is useless. Who should we believe now? They hired him. They babysat him 3 years. What happened to monitoring and evaluation, monitoring the Reiter's performance?
Yeah, year on year, are you winning?
Or even 6 months. Where are we? Where are you going? It's been 6 months. What happened to that process? 3 years passed and the guy resigned voluntarily to say, I'm not going to win this battle. Give me my millions. I'm actually going to take my work and put it in a book.
In fact, he didn't even just resign. He gave them a middle finger with that interview.
Exactly.
Because he knew after that interview, there's no way they're gonna still retain him.
Exactly. So they actually had to beg him to leave before saving the term of leaving the office. But again, that also shows lack of political will in the country, lack of wisdom and vision to leave political party politics and focus on having the right people for the job. Sure. I know Mr. Julius Malema has come up and said bring back Machila Koko and Brian Molefe when he was actually in the forefront of making sure that Machila Koko and Brian Molefe are dismissed from they're playing with the people's minds and the voters in South Africa must wake up come 2024 and realize that the bunch of people who are occupying political positions, they are playing mind games with them. I know the likes of me who speaks out, they don't like it.
Sure.
But unfortunately, I suffer with the majority of the masses. If lights goes off, if robots don't work, if criminals, go up in arms, we all suffer. And where are the political office bearers? They're in the comfort of our tax-funded homes and vehicles.
So Minister Mantashe, in fact, the other day was talking about how he doesn't understand why people are up in arms about the power ships that have been proposed.
Yes.
And in fact, I think it's a power ship from Turkey.
Yes, to KZN.
That have been waltzing with, are we in, are we out? But there's talk of it would be a 20-year contract.
Yeah.
Why would we need a 20-year contract for what is meant to be an interim solution? Because surely if we're fixing load shedding and ESCOM, we need a couple of years.
So that somebody must eat.
So why can't we give Powership a 5-year contract?
That somebody must eat. And that's it. It's the same as the G4S contract with Mangaung prisons, the 2 private prisons, one in Mangaung, one in Venda. That's a 25-year contract signed during Thabo Mbeki. It's ending only in 2026. We need short-term or immediate solution. They want to sign a 20-year contract. Fresh son will be the president of South Africa in 15 years. He will inherit that problem. And that's where corruption starts. That's where corruption starts. That people who are in political positions today, they enter and sign into contracts. If I'm taking whatever country that is leasing that power ship, I will obviously want the longest term to maximize profit.
But I'm building nothing. There's no infrastructure built.
But all I'm saying is the seller, the supplier, will maximize profit. You as the buyer, you must be able to say, but I need this thing temporarily for the next 3 years to can resolve ESCOM problems, because they promised that they will resolve ESCOM problems in 1 year. Now we are told that actually for 1 year we'll be in darkness. Now, okay, we need 3 to 5 years to resolve ESCOM problems. Let us get into a 3 to 5 year contract while we are weighing other options, you understand? But not 20 years. Now, I just think, to be honest, it's one of the sources and elements of corruption to enter into this evergreen long-term contracts when we need short-term contracts for immediate solutions.
Sure. Let's talk former president versus president. Yes, former President Zuma,
Jacob Zuma,
obviously with his private prosecution, says President Ramaphosa had a duty to intervene.
Yes.
Are presidents meant to intervene in such issues?
Well, as the head of state, the fish rots from the head. As the head of state, when there's crisis, you are the commander-in-chief. You have a responsibility. You are the father of the nation. You can intervene in crises that are affecting, whatever is happening in the country.
But is it a crisis? Botsang is being tried, and then his files were leaked to a journalist. Do I get involved as a president?
Look,
is there a case?
Whether there's a case or not is neither here nor there. I think there's politics into this whole process. Yes. I don't think there's a case. Okay. Personally, I think there's politics.
Okay.
Will President Zuma win this? I doubt it. He will never win anything in South African courts for a very longest time to come, especially for as long as President Ramaphosa is a sitting head of state. But that is what has been happening in the country. Let me take you to the politics of it. This thing of saying the judiciary is independent, I've said it before, that's utter nonsense. The judiciary is not independent because it's human beings sitting there. They've got a salary, they've got a price tag. Some of them...
But isn't the law? So, for instance, if the judiciary is captured, surely you can't capture the law and legal precedents, etc.
You can't capture the law, but you can capture the one who's supposed to apply the law. The law is sitting there, it's written.
So what of appeals? What of...
That's why we have cases that are taking 17 years to finish. By the time the challenges of President Ramaphosa ends, the legal, challenges and whose ends, he will be long retired. Understand? Look, it's been 3 years now that since he sealed his bank statement. I think there's politics playing. And again, let me tell you where this comes from. President Zuma is retired. He doesn't have money. He has spent millions
But
of his own money.
I was going to say, a private prosecution needs, I think, a minimum R500,000.
Exactly. Where does the money come from?
As a deposit.
Where does the money come from?
Yeah.
Me and you, in the past, we spoke about the so-called foundations. The foundations are now the new source of neocolonialism. The people who were friends of President Ramaphosa when he came into power and removed him, and white people for that matter, they have now sat down and said, this Mr. Ramaphosa is no longer towing the line. He's not delivering. It looks like he doesn't have a backbone. He's not delivering what we wanted. There are people still inside the ANC who are still telling Mr. Ramaphosa, the Gordhan, the deputy president of the country, Mashatile, they can still tell Mr. Ramaphosa, you are not doing this. Now, those who are rumored or said to have funded him to come into power are becoming dissatisfied. And some of them, what they've done, then they look on the side to say, this guy must go, but who can we use? They can't use the Democratic Alliance. They can't use white people because they're in minority. So you look at the enemy of your enemy and you start teaming up with them in order to cause a havoc. Look, President Ramaphosa can appeal, can file, and can use the best judges and lawyers on earth to can avoid being prosecuted or going to court. But one day, it will crack. You know, when you've got a rock you are hitting continuously with a hammer and a chisel continuously, at some stage it is bound to crack. And I think it is becoming too much for him to can now contain all these legal woes that are surrounding him. You know, every month there's something in court against the president, the sitting president of the republic. He's a human being as well. It will become natural that at some stage he gives up, like he nearly gave up before Nasrec 2022. And Gordhan had to step in to say, you are not going anywhere. You understand? So at some stage, they will keep on knocking. That's how politics work. And remember, President Zuma is not just an outsider like me and you or the opposition. He's an inside person within the African National Congress. So it makes much more of an impact. Despite President Zuma, then comes President Mbeki, sitting there and also hitting, you know, whether by poetry or by letters or by what, it's too much. If you recall, sometimes, I think it was early this or late last year actually, we had one day when President Ramaphosa was addressing the nation, the other ex-presidents, Motlanthe, Zuma, and Mbeki, they were having conferences also, same day addressing the nation. And I asked that 3 former presidents of the ANC and the country are having press conferences
during a family meeting.
During a family meeting. Yeah. And actually that should have been to the nation a highlight of the challenges that Ramaphosa will be facing moving forward. But again, it's the politics of money. Like all over the world, South Africa has become a mature democracy. It's no longer infancy. And there is money in this country. There's money playing hands. We've got the Martha Wietskas of the money. We've got the Ruperts. Capital decides who becomes the head of state in capitalist societies. That's a given fact.
Sure. We are running out of time, but I wanted us to wrap up with the Thabo Bester story.
Yes.
So the other day, earlier this week, his lawyer, and I thought this was a smart move, asks, but who's this person in front of you?
Yeah.
And how do you know you've got the right person or you are trying the right person?
Yes.
Talk to us about that.
You know, that was very interesting for me. And people will say, why is Botsang talking about criminal processes in a politics or political game? And for me, again, it comes back from my background, being a consular official and how government works. This is a pure government administration. You are correct, Fresh. Thabo Bester, lawyer, did a very, very smart and dangerous move during the hearing on the 16th on my birthday, actually. Sure. He did a very smart move. He questioned the state, and this is what I want to explain to our viewers. He questioned the state to say, but presiding officer, your Lord or my worship, whoever they call the magistrate, what makes you think that person, my client, is Thabo Bester? And I actually saw the magistrate blinking like, what are you talking about? This guy was here, I saw him. He's in jail. I said, no. That's my client. Thabo Bester is dead.
Yeah, the record states.
Yes.
Yeah.
Who issues the record? It is the state. The state has declared Thabo Bester dead. Now, when you look at the population register, and I've said before, I've worked in an environment whereby I registered birth, I register marriage, I register death, and so forth. Okay, the state has declared Thabo Bester dead. There's no document that came after.
There's no resurrection document.
Yes, that says, no, that was an error and all that. That's number one.
Sure.
But there's a bigger picture. The state itself had come back and said, we never registered any Thabo Bester in the population register of the country. So what I'm trying to explain is the human being, the person who is in jail, was called and labeled and recorded as Thabo Bester, not by the Department of Home Affairs, as the custodian of the population register. I'm talking 2011, 2012, when he went to prison, okay? He was declared Thabo Bester by correctional services. So a prisoner of correctional services, a person, a human being, is Thabo Bester. The legal persona, a born human being registered by the Department of Home Affairs called Thabo Bester, never existed until this past week.
Sure.
On breaking news, and I was sitting with somebody when this breaking news came out. I think it was on Wednesday night, late at night on Wednesday. There was breaking news on the mainstream media by Minister Motsoaledi saying, we have now finally registered Thabo Bester, and we can confirm through the DNA that Thabo Bester is Thabo Bester. Why did that happen? It happened because of what the lawyer had said.
So were they closing the loophole?
They were closing the loophole.
Okay.
The state became very smart to say, well, this lawyer is very smart. Because the lawyer was going to say, that client of mine is not Thabo Bester, because Thabo Bester is dead. And that client of mine, even if you can come and revoke, you see, this is the smart move that the state did. Even if the state can say, now we know that the person who died there is not Thabo Bester. You know what the lawyer was going to say in future? He was going to say, but Thabo Bester never existed.
Yeah.
Show us documents that this person is Thabo Bester. And those documents never existed. That's why the state rushed to confirm the DNA and to come late at night on Wednesday night.
So was this like a late registration of birth?
It's a late registration of birth and DNA late. Actually, you know, Thabo Bester, the persona, the guy in jail.
Yeah.
You know what? I don't want to send wrong signals like I'm favoring the guy. I'm here as an independent political analyst.
Sure.
Thabo Bester can sue the state for jailing him. They jail the person, they don't know who he is. How do they think that guy is Thabo Bester? Maybe it's Muhammad Iqmal Sabil. We don't know. And that's a technicality that the state play in legislation of. So Thabo Bester was only confirmed as a registered existing person by the state on Wednesday evening, which was a day after his lawyer saying to the state, tell me who is that person. I know that person is my client. He hired me to defend him. But can the state tell me who that person? The state did not have any records of who that person is except correctional services records. And that's an interesting, argument. The person I was sitting with the night when this day out, and he said, but why are we getting interested? Why is that breaking news? And then I explained it, and he said, gosh, I never saw that coming. We may find Thabo Bester walking out of prison on a legal technicality if we are not careful as a nation.
So are you saying the loophole has been closed?
So far it has been closed. I want to see what angle the lawyer is going to bring now. He may argue that they sent the wrong person to jail 12 years back.
Sure.
But at the moment, the person that they have in jail, who escaped from jail, they can confirm it's Thabo Bester because of the fingerprints that were taken in 2011 and previous.
So they correlate with the current guy.
They correlate with that. That's why Minister Motsoaledi is saying now they've tested. And remember, they had gone to Bara Hospital prior to the school where he went to, and the mother is alive and existing. That's why they relied on DNA. It could be fingerprints, it could be family relations. And I think the state moved very swiftly. That lawyer jumped the gun. He should have not raised that during the preliminary stages of the case. He should have waited. And I'm becoming a devil's advocate here, actually. And those are the politics of the country, because, when this happened, what will the people say?
Yeah.
The government does not care. The justice system is useless. They are letting criminals out without noticing and realizing the entire technicality. It is important to register births. It is important for a judge in court to know that the person that is standing in front of them is actually the person that is protected to be whoever we say they are. That's very crucial.
And on that note, I think we're done.
Thank you very much, and thanks to the viewers, and we'll meet again next week.
Thanks for another hot episode.
Thanks, Fresh.
And a lot of people that watch the podcast have been asking who you are, where are you from, why you, of all people. So what I think we should do is next week, we must actually have a Botsang session.
Okay. No,
So
that's fine.
next week's episode will be me and you sitting on a couch or something, getting to know Botsang the man. So we'll talk from childhood to where we are right now.
I wonder what you said to the people when they answered that question, but it's fine. It's something that we can look into.
No, people are asking, like, who is this man? And I figure, you know what, let's give the people what they want. And let's find out who on earth you are. So we'll do that next week.
That's fine. No, thanks a lot. We'll do that.
All right. We are done. Botsang Moiloa is available on social media. You can look for Botsang Moiloa or Botsang M. And that was our show for this week. I hope you managed with all your loads. Remember, everyone, just because you're in the dark doesn't mean you have to be in the dark, if you get what I mean. Either way, have a WAW week ahead. Thank you very, very much.
This is Wow! What a week.
What a week.
And that was our show for this week. Hope you managed with all your loads. Remember, everyone, just because you're in the dark doesn't mean you have to be in the dark, if you get what I mean. Either way, have a WOW week ahead, and thank you for tuning in. Shout out to Ant Studios for hanging out with us and hosting us in this beautiful studio of theirs. Africa Podcast Network, love you guys. Pezulu Works, your cinematography is... I was about to say Grammy Award winning. We'll go with an Oscar. Our audio engineer, Otis the Flow Fraser, shout out to you. And our guest, Botsang Modimowame Moiloa. Shout out to our creative director, Kuvesh Mohan. And our show producer, Kelezo Modisakeng. Email us at waw@africapodcastnetwork.com. Have a wow week in spite of yourself.